There is a machine sitting in a fence line right now that the dealer wants you to scrap. It is dented, it leaks a little oil, and the paint has gone chalky in the sun. Under the hood is an old Caterpillar engine with no computer telling it what to do. The salesman who walks your yard will glance at it and call it a liability. He is wrong, and he knows he is wrong. That tired old block is worth more than the shiny new machine he is trying to sell you. And the people who sell parts and emissions systems for a living would rather you never figured that out. Start with the engine everybody in this world already respects. The Caterpillar 3406E. It began production in 1993 as the first fully electronic motor in that legendary 3406 family, 14.6 liters of cast iron, built to be rebuilt. Mechanics who have spent 30 years in a shop will tell you the same thing about it. Strong block, long service life, and you can take it apart on a dirt floor with hand tools and a manual. Before, it came the 3306, a smaller mechanical workhorse that ran graders and loaders and pumps for decades, without ever asking for a software update. These engines were designed by people who assumed the owner would keep them running for 40 years. That assumption is exactly what changed. Then came the C-15, released in 1999, and for a while it carried the same reputation. But watch what happens to the timeline. In 2004, the C-15 shifted to the ACERT version, and the company started bolting on emissions hardware to satisfy a federal agency. That is the moment the story splits in two. On one side, you have the pre-emissions iron. On the other, you have everything that came after, loaded with filters and sensors and fluid tanks that turn a simple breakdown into a tow bill. Here is the line that matters, and it is the line the dealer hopes you never learn. The old, mechanical Caterpillar engine has no diesel particulate filter, no selective catalytic reduction, and no forced regeneration cycle. None of it. It burns fuel, it makes power, and it goes home at night. If you want to know why the old iron is worth more than the new, subscribe to Quisoup. If you are watching on your TV, find Quisoup and hit subscribe there. Now let me explain what those 3 letters cost you, because this is where the modern machine bleeds money. After 2007, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, forced manufacturers to clean up diesel exhaust. The fix was a stack of after-treatment hardware. First, the diesel particulate filter, the DPF, a ceramic trap that catches soot and then has to burn it off in a cycle called regeneration. When that cycle fails, the machine derates, loses power, and sometimes shuts down in the middle of a job. Then the selective catalytic reduction system, the SCR, which sprays a fluid called diesel exhaust fluid, the DEF, into the exhaust to break down nitrogen oxides. That fluid freezes, it crystallizes, and it gums up injectors. Stack all of it together and you have a machine that can strand a crew over a clogged filter. These are not rare complaints. Operators report that a single forced regeneration service runs a couple $100s on a good day and several hundred when a technician has to chase codes. When the diesel particulate filter actually has to be replaced on a heavy machine, the bill climbs into the thousands, and a full after-treatment failure with the selective catalytic reduction catalyst, towing, and emergency labor can run from $15,000 to $25,000. Meanwhile, the machine sits dead. A working machine that cannot work costs you $500 to over $1,000 a day in lost revenue while you wait. And there is a quieter killer underneath all of it. Frequent regeneration dumps raw fuel past the rings and dilutes the engine oil, which thins your lubrication and wears the bottom end early. So the system meant to protect the air ends up eating the engine. There is one more piece of hardware in that modern stack that deserves its own warning, and it is the exhaust gas recirculation system. It routes hot, dirty exhaust back into the intake to lower combustion temperatures, which coats the intake tract and the cooler in carbon and soot over time. On a heavy machine working long hours, that recirculation cooler can crack, and when it cracks, it pushes coolant where coolant should never go. So now you are chasing a head gasket that was never actually the problem. The old 3306 pulled clean air straight through the intake and sent its exhaust out the stack and never thought about it again. Simplicity is not a downgrade. Simplicity is the absence of things that can strand you. Now flip back to the old 3306 and the 3406E sitting in your fence line. None of that hardware exists on them. There is no filter to clog, no fluid to freeze, no regeneration cycle to fail. When something goes wrong, it is mechanical, and mechanical things can be touched, measured, and fixed. A blown head gasket is a weekend, not a financing event. That is not nostalgia. That is a cold calculation about uptime, and uptime is the only number that pays your bills. Walk the math one more step, because the dealer never will. A complete overhaul kit for a 3406E or a C15 with new liners, pistons, rings, and bearings is a known and modest cost, and the labor to install it is a known and modest cost. Set that single number next to what a fleet actually spends in one bad year on aftertreatment. A forced regeneration here, a clogged filter there, a frozen dose of diesel exhaust fluid in January, a derate that parks the machine for 2 days during your busiest week. Add the lost revenue from a machine that will not move while it waits for a technician. The rebuild is a one-time bill that buys you years. The emissions hardware is a recurring bill that never stops. And it never stops because it was never designed to. This is why a real used equipment market premium exists for pre-emissions machines, and the people inside the industry know it. Buyers actively seek out the older mechanical iron because it dodges the after-treatment tax entirely. The dealer frames the old machine as a liability because the new machine is where his margin lives, in the sale, in the parts, in the service contract that comes with every sensor on board. He needs you to believe the old engine is a problem. The market says the opposite. The federal government has even put a price on this gap by accident. Look at the glider kit. A glider is a brand new truck frame and body fitted with an older, rebuilt powertrain, often a pre-2002 mechanical engine. For years, buyers flocked to them precisely to escape the emissions hardware, and sales rose roughly tenfold compared to a few years earlier. The EPA noticed. In its Phase 2 greenhouse rule finalized in 2016, the agency capped glider production at a small number of vehicles per year, per manufacturer, naming the pre-2002 engines as far dirtier than modern ones. There was a fight to repeal that cap in 2017, and an internal watchdog later found the repeal attempt was rushed and lacked transparency. The cap held. Think about what that tells you. The demand for the old mechanical engine got so strong that the federal government had to write a rule to slow it down. Nobody passes a law to stop people from buying something worthless. Quick break before we get into what happened next. If you have been on this channel for a while, watching why the old mechanical engines refuse to die, there is a way to make sure you do not miss what is coming. Join the operator tier for $4.99 a month. You get badges that mark you as a working professional in the comments section, custom emoji to call out the corporate decisions that killed Cat, and you get every video 24 hours before the rest of the internet. To join, open your phone and search Quisup Membership, or go to the channel page and tap Join. Join the operators and engineers who are paying attention. Now, back to it. So why do the dealers really fear the rebuild? Because a rebuild cuts them out of the loop. The 3406E and the C15 were engineered to be overhauled, and complete rebuild kits exist with brand new liners, pistons, rings, bearings, and gaskets machined to original tolerances. A competent shop can take one of these engines to 0 hours and hand you another 500,000 miles of service for a fraction of what a new machine costs. Every one of those rebuilds is a new machine the dealer did not sell, a service contract he did not write, and a stream of emissions parts he will never collect on. The rebuildable engine is the thing that breaks his business model, so he tells you it is junk. The parts side of the business works the same way, and it is worth saying plainly. A mechanical engine accepts parts from a wide world of suppliers, aftermarket and original alike, because there is no software gate deciding what the machine will accept. A modern electronic machine increasingly steers you back to the dealer counter, where the parts carry the prices the dealer wants, and the diagnosis carries the labor rate the dealer sets. Decontenting made the new machines cheaper to build, while the service relationship made them more expensive to own. That is not an accident of engineering. That is a financial design, and the finance people who run this company drew it on purpose. And then there is the lockout, which is the part that should make every owner angry. On the modern electronic machines, Caterpillar controls the software. The factory passwords needed to clear certain codes, re-rate an engine, or replace the control module are only available to authorized dealer technicians, and even the dealer has to buy them. The customer does not get access. So when your late model machine throws an emissions code and locks itself into a derate, you cannot fix it in your own yard with your own wrench. You haul it to the dealer, on his schedule, at his rate. That is the heart of the right to repair fight that is raging across construction and agricultural equipment right now. The manufacturers argue that locking the software protects safety and emissions compliance. Owners argue they bought the machine and ought to be able to fix the machine. Now look back at your old 3306. There is no password on it. There is no lockout. You own it completely. The way ownership used to mean something. That is the real reason the old Caterpillar engine is hidden gold. It is not just that it runs. It is that it runs on your terms, with no filter to fail, no fluid to freeze, no software to lock you out, and no dealer standing between you and a running machine. The accountants who took over this company decided that recurring revenue beats durable products, so they built machines that need the dealer forever. The engineers who designed the 3406E built the opposite. They built something you could keep alive alone in a field for 40 years. And that independence is exactly what the new business model cannot tolerate. Here is the question I want you to fight about in the comments. If a rebuilt, pre-emissions Caterpillar engine gives you more uptime, full ownership, and no after-treatment bills, is buying any new emissions-controlled machine just paying the dealer a tax to take away your right to fix your own iron? Tell me in the comments. So, before you let anyone talk you into scrapping that old block, get it appraised by someone who actually buys used iron, not by the man trying to sell you new. Find out what a rebuild kit costs for your engine and compare it to 1 year of after-treatment repairs on a modern machine. The numbers tend to end the argument fast. The old engine is not a relic. It is leverage. And the only people who lose when you keep it are the ones who profit when you do not. One more thing before you go. If you really want to be part of the inner circle on this channel, join the site foreman for $9.99 a month. You get a public shout-out in upcoming videos. Your name, your operation, your story, validated in front of the entire QuiSoup audience, plus everything from the operator tier. To join, open your phone and search QuiSoup membership, or go to the channel page and tap join. And remember, the day a company starts locking you out of the machine you paid for is the day it stopped building tools and started renting you permission. See you in the next one.